and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon. It's midday on Saturday, the 3rd of January, and this is the weekend on GB News. Big show for you, covering the breaking news of Venezuela, which has been declared a state of national emergency after President Donald Trump confirmed that the US has carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country. Donald Trump will hold a press conference later this afternoon. Political reaction has been swift from Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, who has condemned the attacks as unorthodox, interesting word, and contrary to international law. Meanwhile, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey says Keir Starmer should condemn Trump's illegal action in Venezuela. Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbyn has called it an unprovoked and illegal attack from the US, labelling it an act of war that puts millions of lives at risk. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for your company. A slightly different show for you this afternoon, obviously covering the breaking news story from Venezuela, that Donald Trump has launched an attack on the capital, Caracas, and taken the president and his wife into America. We believe at the moment, we're not quite sure where they are, but it's a breaking story. It happened in the early hours of local time and about 7 o'clock this morning at UK time. We have got loads of reaction coming in, although curiously we are still waiting to hear from the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. But we will let you know all the developments as and when we had them throughout the afternoon in the run-up to President Trump, who is giving a press conference later this afternoon as well. And we are obviously, as I said, waiting to hear from the UK government about what this means. This has huge implications for all of us, and certainly the situation between Russia, China and America. And the question I need to ask is, did Europe know about what Donald Trump was doing? Is this why our Prime Minister is being quiet? Because maybe he didn't have a clue what was going on, and this is the special relationship at one of our closest allies. Did Europe know what Donald Trump was doing? All those questions we hope we can provide answers for you. If you've got any questions yourself, please do get in touch, gbnews.com/yoursay, and join in the conversation, or you can scan the QR code you can see on your screens now. But before we get into that huge rolling news story, let's get the latest news headlines with Sophia Winston.
Dawn, thank you and good afternoon. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are your headlines. Donald Trump has hailed what he described as a brilliant operation to capture Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. The US president launched airstrikes on Caracas earlier this morning before confirming that Mr. Maduro and his wife had been taken into custody and flown out of the country. Republican Senator Mike Lee has said the Venezuelan president was arrested to stand trial in the US on criminal charges. Maduro declared a state of emergency after explosions and low-flying aircrafts were heard in the capital of Caracas this morning. The Venezuelan government said it rejects and denounces the US's military aggression. The Trump administration has accused President Maduro of heading a drug cartel and says it is cracking down on the trafficking. Defense editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox, says it's possibly the biggest development in the second Trump administration.
there has been continuous pressure now for months, for 2 or 3 months, from America, mainly on the excuse or justification that Venezuela is a drug hub, a major source of drugs. It isn't quite as big as made out, but the main contention seems to be about oil, about Venezuelan oil, which Trump has accused has been illegitimately obtained, again, from other people, including American interests.
Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has reacted to the news, saying that while America's actions are unorthodox and contrary to international law, if they make China and Russia think twice, it may be a good thing. While Liberal Democrats leader Sir Ed Davey has said Keir Starmer should condemn Trump's illegal action in Venezuela. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night despite Donald Trump's threat to intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. So far, at least 10 people have been killed and dozens arrested after a severe economic crisis sparked violent protests across the country. The US president had warned Iran earlier in the day that Washington was locked and loaded and would rescue demonstrators if Tehran killed any more anti-regime protesters. But Iran's foreign ministry condemned what they called intimidating remarks and threatened a swift, decisive and comprehensive response if the US intervenes. In other news now, sparklers on champagne bottles are the likely cause of a deadly fire at a Swiss ski resort, according to officials. The blaze on New Year's Eve injured 119 people and killed 40. Meanwhile, the first 4 victims of the fire have been identified as 2 Swiss women aged 21 and 16 and 2 Swiss men aged 18 and 16. Their bodies have been returned to their families, Swiss police say. Pictures of teenagers still unaccounted for have begun to emerge, with a student who studied in England declared missing. 15-year-old Charlotte Needham, who holds French and Israeli citizenship, briefly attended the JFS school in London and Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire. Elsewhere, 2 people have died and a third is missing after trying to help a teenage girl who was washed away in the sea off the East Yorkshire coast. That's according to reports. Police were called to Withensea at 3:15 p.m. yesterday, where a 67-year-old man was pulled unconscious from the water and died at the scene, while a second person's body was recovered that evening. Searches continue today for a third person. Now Britain looks set to shiver through the first week of New Year with snow covering parts of the country. The Met Office is predicting up to 40 centimetres in Scotland and 5 centimetres across England and Wales. Yellow snow and ice warnings are in place across the southwest, northwest and east coast of England and Wales, Northern Ireland until Monday. Travel delays and cancellations and disruptions on the roads and power cuts are expected. And Gen Z and millennial couples are choosing dogs rather than having children, according to analysis by the Times newspaper. For many young couples, getting a puppy used to be a test before having a baby, but now some 34% of postcodes areas in England have more dogs than children. The current estimate of about 13 million dogs in the UK is up from a figure of 9 million in 2019. The number of children is about 15 million, but yearly growth has remained largely flat. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now, we have got a huge show for you this afternoon, different from normal. I hope you forgive me for that one. Obviously, we're covering the breaking news of Donald Trump attack on Venezuela this morning, 7 o'clock-ish UK time, early hours of the morning in Venezuela, where the President, Nicolas Maduro, was taken into custody. Now, we are starting with that breaking news, obviously, and President Trump confirms the US has carried out that large-scale strikes on Venezuela. Trump has posted on Truth Social in the last half hour saying that President Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country. Venezuelan ally Iran has commentated this morning, saying that the attack is a blatant violation of its national sovereignty and territorial integrity. The president will be holding that press conference we mentioned earlier, around about 4 p.m. UK time. We will, of course, bring you that in full detail. When we hope we will get full details of what's actually happened as well. Meanwhile, UK politicians have started responding, apart from the most important one, obviously. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has condemned the attacks as unorthodox and contrary to international law, while co-founder of Your Party, Jeremy Corbyn, has called it an unprovoked and illegal attack from the US, labelling it an act of war that puts millions of lives at risk. OK, now, Charlie Peters, our national reporter, has been covering the story all morning, making him do treble shift today, obviously. Charlie, just so you have been covering this story for the last 3 hours, I believe now. Just sum up what has happened this morning.
Well, the use of pure American firepower, first and foremost, to prepare for a covert extraction of a sitting president. It is an example of US President Donald Trump flexing the unbridled power that he has access to with the carrier strike group in the southern Caribbean, using remarkable capabilities that they boast and possess to go into a heavily fortified city and presidential living quarters to just remove him and his wife. After years of diplomatic anger between the two, he has finally said enough is enough for Team Trump, and have just plucked the guy out of his capital city, gone in, picked him up and taken him away, presumably to the United States, where he is facing a court trial with a $50 million bounty on his head. That is no longer active because the US government itself has picked him up. He's been facing charges from the US since 2020. They have described him as the kingpin of this immense international narco-trafficking network. And the Trump administration has always said that, from a strategic perspective, that is why they're going after him. And that is why, since September, we have seen the Department of Defense, through many of its agencies, conducting lethal drone strikes, some of them controversially double tapping, so using missiles on survivors in shipwrecks, on alleged drug smuggling boats, small boats heading towards North America. Now, we have to say that the evidence that Maduro was leading this massive trafficking operation, not as substantial and not as extensive as Washington might have wanted everyone to believe. While it's true that Nicolas Maduro and Venezuela are people and are an organisation, they're a government that permit trafficking through the country, and of course with the world's biggest, one of the world's biggest cocaine providers in Colombia, just over the border. Yeah. It's obvious why those concerns and why those very legitimate fears exist. But to take these steps require extraordinary concerns to exist. Now, we know since September those lethal strikes have been going on. Since October, the CIA has been acting more overtly in the Venezuelan capital. But this action goes far beyond anything that was anticipated. And let's take a look at what this could mean now in Venezuela, because a series of ministers have been making televised remarks condemning the American attack, and it is now an eerie calm in Caracas, although the Attorney General has urged people to take to the streets with calm and vigilance. I can't imagine an enormous number of people will be reacting to that very positively, having just seen bombs land on their streets.
As far as we're aware, though, Charlie, there are no casualties, which is quite incredible.
Yeah. Well, the Venezuelan authorities and several of their ministers, I believe including in particular the Interior Minister, have claimed that there were civilian casualties, but we should stress they've not provided evidence or any clear indication of damage and destruction to civilian infrastructure. From what we've seen, based on footage posted on social media, some of which we've been able to verify at GBNews, is very clearly targeting key logistical and military sites, several airports, the main airbase in Caracas, La Carlota, the main signal antenna in the country, the ports, the main port of Venezuela, which is La Guaira, and of course another airbase in the state of Miranda, and the Fuerte Tiuna main military base in Caracas. Now those don't Those obviously aren't civilian areas, but we've seen the size of the armaments that they're using. There is, of course, always a tremendous risk of lethal effects hitting civilian populations. However, again, we should stress no evidence provided of any civilian damage. What has been more precise, the picking of the lock with the use of US Special Forces, Delta Force, the premier American Special Operations Force, being deployed by the Night Stalkers, those dual rotor, the Chinooks that were flying very low over Caracas in the early hours. That dawn raid, that is the most important part, of course, of that military operation, achieving the strategic goal from the US, which is to get Maduro out of power. We have heard the US president talking about how Maduro's days are numbered. Well, now his days are over, really, as a Venezuelan leader. And we have heard also support for foreign intervention from Venezuelan opposition leaders who won an election, but then it was not ratified by Maduro, who, of course, illegally continued his rule over the country, despite suffering a vast loss, which was verified internationally, which is observed, that election. And now we're waiting for reaction here in Britain. We've already had Nigel Farage with that rather curious statement, Dawn.
Very curiously worded.
Talking about a breach of international law, but saying, but it might be a good thing if it deters Russia and China. Zach Polanski from the Greens being much more severe, as we expect, saying this is a breach of international law. We've heard from other left-wing and far-left politicians, including Zara Sultana, Jeremy Corbyn, talking about imperialism, condemning the actions. But we're still waiting for the Prime Minister of this country and his opposition and Kemi Badenoch for their view. I think those comments are going to be extremely interesting. I imagine Sir Keir Starmer will be quite guarded, but it's whether it'll be a guarded negative or a guarded positive that we're all waiting to find out. I think that Kemi Badenoch might be changing her reaction based on what Nigel Farage has said. We know that in this year, 2026, she's seeking to perhaps go more on the attack on Nigel Farage, who's been briefed out to various newspapers in the last few days. But what Nigel Farage has said could open up a potential bit of division on the political right in Britain.
Now, obviously, Keir Starmer has to be very careful. I mean, he's kind of going to be damned whatever he says, to be honest with you, because if, as he should do, condemn Donald Trump for breaking international law, because there's no one disputing that, Charlie, is there? What has happened is against international law.
Yep.
And if, for example, someone like Putin had done this, everybody would condemn it straight away. So, but if Starmer comes out and condemns it, then the relationship, that special relationship, that isn't really a special relationship between those two men, as we know, is put on even stickier ground. I mean, what's happened today has vast, vast global consequences, obviously. But if you bring it back down to ground in the UK this morning, it puts our Prime Minister in a very, very, some would say, dangerous situation.
And there were reports in the last month or so that Britain had actually ceased some degree of its intelligence sharing with the US government in the region. We know that the British Royal Navy and indeed the Royal Marines and other governmental agencies and assets are focused in the area, very interested in the narco-trafficking networks there, have closely worked with the US forces in the region. Now, sources in Britain have actually denied the reporting. I think that first emerged in CNN that we had stopped some intelligence sharing. There's still a bit of murky ground there on what the relationship is, but already signs of a split there between the two governments on this particular policy. This step forward, again, it's being framed as being a part of a narco-trafficking network, got to stop that risk. It clearly goes beyond that, right? That's how the White House is dressing it up to some degree. It goes further.
Narco-trafficking, you mean the drug trafficking? Just to be clear, the fact that a lot of the drugs are being funneled from Colombia through Venezuela into America.
And that's the claim that they're making at the White House. But I think that this clearly goes beyond that. This is an extraordinary measure that is a reaction to and a solution to something beyond this concern about drug trafficking and about Venezuela's role in that. We've had a lot of commentary this morning already about oil reserves. It's very important to stress that Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves of any country in the world. The US is 9th globally, 303 billion barrels of oil in Venezuela. Much of it can't extract properly due to various technical limitations. And of course, the country is pretty poor after decades of communist and then left-wing rule under authoritarian governments. Another point I want to make, Dawn, about further signs that these strikes might be about more than just the drug trafficking kingpins, is that there are reports, again, we're still waiting for them to be confirmed.
Just to interrupt, we'll come back to you. I think we do have a comment from Starmer now, do we? He's now responded to the attacks. Let's have a listen, shall we?
What's happened in Venezuela?
No, I haven't, and it's obviously a fast-moving situation, and we need to establish all the facts. What I can say is that the UK was not involved in any way in this operation. And as you'd expect, we're focusing on British nationals in Venezuela and working very closely with our embassy. And so I will want to talk to the President, I will want to talk to allies, but at the moment, I think we need to establish the facts. I think President Trump is doing a press conference later, so hopefully more information will come out then.
What is clear, though, which the White House has said, is that America carried out strikes on Venezuela and captured their leader, Maduro. Some politicians in this country have already condemned that. Do you?
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
And just lastly, for people who might have family there or the small number of Brits in Venezuela, there are some there, it might be a small number, but of course people will be very concerned. What would their advice be?
Yeah, there's about 500 there in Venezuela, and we're working with the embassy to make sure that they are well looked after, safeguarded, and get appropriate advice. So we're working at pace with the embassy on that. It is a small number, but it's an important number. It is about 500, and so that's what we're doing there.
Prime Minister, thank you.
OK, so that's Keir Starmer there speaking for the first time about the developments in Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro being in custody, we believe, in America at the moment. That's the first thing he said. Charlie Peters is in the studio with me. Very interesting. He said, we are not involved. UK is not involved in this. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, which is a neighbouring island off the coast of Venezuela, have said we had nothing to do with this straight away. Now, we are not involved. Does that mean that we didn't even know? Does that mean America didn't bother telling one of their closest allies that this was going to go ahead?
Yeah, I think almost certainly. There's another clue to the fact that we were totally in the dark on this, which I think is, as I said, almost certainly the case in this attack, is that Sir Keir Starmer said hopefully more information will come out when President Trump gives his press conference. He did later say that he wants to establish the facts and he wants to speak to President Trump and allies, but his first remark was that he was still waiting, essentially like us, for a press conference with President Trump to get more information about what has happened here, to establish the facts. So very clear that the UK intelligence community did not feed information to the Prime Minister overnight. We should be clear. I mean, there are systems in place that if there is a warning or an awareness that the whole global network receives, there are people on standby to wake up the Prime Minister any day, any time, day or night, to inform him of this. So it's highly likely that the first that the Prime Minister was hearing of this was the same as us, when the pictures were floating in from locals in Venezuela sharing footage of explosions suddenly rocking the local ports, airports, air bases. And it's true also that the US media was learning about it in real time. We didn't even hear a statement from the US military until much later on, when some sources started briefing, obviously anonymously, sources and officials were speaking to the US media after a couple of hours. So there was serious security on this operation. A couple of reasons for that. It might not be the case that they've not shared it with Britain due to concerns about us not mattering or anything like that, but more about information and operational security. We know that there have been so many embarrassing leaks from the US government in recent times. We saw strikes in the Middle East leaked into a signal group where a journalist was added. Like, these are information security errors that are unimaginable but have happened in the last year. it's highly likely that the information security on an operation of this complexity and delicacy would require them to not tell a single soul outside that very close group of officials and advisors. I think it's highly likely that wherever Delta Force were launched from to conduct this operation, that many of the sailors and soldiers around them wouldn't have known what they were up to either.
Very, very intriguing. Thank you very much for now, Charlie Peters. Absolutely astonishing developments on this story. You just heard Keir Starmer there saying we at the UK were not involved. And as you just heard Charlie Peters say, I think you can interpret that as we knew nothing about it. The Prime Minister is waiting to hear from the press conference, as pretty much the rest of the world is. We will bring you that live as and when we have it this afternoon. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GBNews. There's lots more coming up on today's show. We will bring you the latest on that breaking story as Donald Trump confirmed to you has carried out large-scale strikes on the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. All of that and much more to come. This is GBNews. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
You that every one of those tickets will be sold. Guaranteed.
I guess they
because
will.
They'll be corporate ticket, you know, that's the things that will be corporate organisations that buy the tickets en masse. Is that the ticket price from FIFA for the game, or is that the up ticket?
No, that's the legit price.
Yeah,
that's before the scalping happens. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The cheapest tickets for the final in the USA now cost more than £3,000.
But then if you look at Wimbledon, how much Wimbledon is for a final, it's just absolutely extreme. And, you know, so you are completely knocking out the mainstream fan, and just you've got the elite.
I mean, it's a bit of a contrast to Qatar, where the prices weren't that high. Obviously, a bit tricky to, you know, not cheap to get there, but not cheap to get to the States either. But obviously, for Qatar, it was about putting yourself on the world sporting map and using its diplomacy. Whereas in the States, it's about making the dollar.
Well, I can also just say that they've got the Pride match. It's going to be played at the World Cup. It's in Seattle, and it's against it's Iran versus Egypt.
So both of them have asked for it not to be the Pride match.
Both of them have asked not to be. But the only other teams, the only other game in that group that they could use as the Pride match is the USA versus Australia, and they can't because that's also their dedicated anti-slavery match. Yeah, so it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Are any of them themed around?
How they swap them round?
well, still that doesn't work, does it? Because of the other two nations.
Yeah, I think that's worse.
Like Iran, I don't know, they're still a bit slavey, aren't they?
Can't they just play football?
Modern slavery is an issue across the world.
Yeah. But I just I don't know, it just cracks me up. Like, why? So we've got. Why are we doing any of this?
It should just be...
But also then stop, if you care so much about these issues, stop giving World Cups. Like in 2036, it's in Saudi Arabia, which does have modern slavery and kills gay people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things up the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Dawn Neeson, and the time is 27 minutes past midday. OK, let's recap on the breaking news this morning for you. The United States launched airstrikes on Venezuela this morning, and Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, has been captured by US Special Forces, and he is now on his way, we believe, to the US to face trial. President Trump is expected to hold a press conference at 4 o'clock UK time, and we'll be bringing you that as and when it happens with all the details. In the last few minutes, minutes. Keir Starmer says he wants to establish facts and speak to Trump and his allies. So let's now talk to our international affairs expert, Leon Cook, who joins me in the studio now. Leon, thank you so much for coming in. Firstly, I mean, the more you get your head around this story, it is quite astonishing. What did you think when you first heard this?
When I woke up this morning, once again, Trump, he is nothing but, if not a consequential president. Every time he does something, he has spent the best part of last year talking about being the peace president. He was very unhappy not to even be nominated, let alone awarded the Peace Prize. Interestingly, the person that did win the Peace Prize is the person in exile who is the official leader of the opposition, Maria Corina Machado. Yes, there are federal indictments against Maduro and have been for the last 5 years, but by virtue of going in and scooping him up and his wife, he has broke the UN Charter. This is against international humanitarian law. And consequently, I think the statement you've just seen from Keir Starmer, what could he possibly say? He has to keep Trump on side vis-a-vis Ukraine. There's been no statement also from Merz or from Macron, because they can't cut across him. They need him to be on side vis-a-vis NATO. At the same time, if I was sitting in Beijing and in Moscow right now, I actually might think this will give us unilateral right to do whatever we want.
Well, that's the problem we have here, isn't it? Obviously, we know Russia and China are allies with Venezuela, and this gives them carte blanche to behave how they want as far as international law, not worth the paper it's written on. Trump's proved that.
Well, in the last 10 days, you've obviously had military operations in and around Taiwan by the Chinese. Russia has been flexing its muscles, doesn't seem any closer coming to the negotiating table. Interestingly, the newly appointed Chief of Staff to Zelensky is very, very friendly with the United States. So there's lots of probably conspiracy theories about why he's done this. Outside of federal indictment, it's not, I don't think, about oil. They only make up about less than 1% of global crude export market. It is about Maduro thumbing his nose at the United States. This has been talked about for months now, but people thought that there would be airstrikes. I don't think people thought that there will be people landing on the ground and actually picking up the president.
This is a peculiar thing. We've had the rumblings of this for months now, haven't we? We've had the boats off the coast. We've had sort of like, you know, the drug trafficking boats being stopped. We've had a war of words going on. Yeah. But this morning when we woke up to this, we were surprised, even though Trump has been threatening it.
Well, maybe he thinks that there's a continuation of this, that if elections are allowed to be held again, or that Edmundo Gonzalez, who was thought to have actually won last year's presidential election, can come back, he can say, well, I'm restoring democracy to the world because the person that rightly won that election can now take hold of the keys of power in Caracas. But I have to say, breaking international law doesn't seem like the best possible practice way of doing it, but what does he care about convention?
Well, is that Trump's job? Is that Trump's job to do that?
I don't think there is anyone in the world that can actually put some sort of restraint on him now. You even see the Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, putting out tweets from a year ago to say, well, this is the rationale for why we did it. It is actually about drugs. That may be fair and reasonable.
Do you believe that? Do you think it's about drugs?
I think it's probably half of the rationale for why he has done this. I think the more likely is, I want to flex my muscles. I want to start 2026 with everyone being under no uncertain terms that when I want something to happen, it will happen. And there is another thing that is on the horizon, which is at the end of this year, there are the midterm elections. As it currently stands, the Democrats will definitely take hold of the Congress, the House, might even flip the Senate. If that happens, he's a lame duck president. So while the MAGA movement doesn't want an interventionist president, that is exactly what he is and has become, I might add. At the same time, it's what Starmer has been doing in the UK, misdirection. Let's talk about foreign affairs.
Interesting you mentioned Congress. Would Trump have done this without Congress's approval?
Well, I think earlier in the segment or the last show, there was talk that the Armed Services Committee in the Senate weren't informed of this, and therefore ultimately, the executive powers of the president means he can do whatever he wants outside of a full-scale act of war, whereby a vote is conditional. But yes, he has the right to do this.
Leon, just want to bring you some breaking news. We are just getting into the newsroom now. basically Maduro and his wife have both been indicted in New York now. That is breaking news coming out of America just now. We're not quite sure what they've been indicted for, but we do know that in 2020, the US Department indicted them for drug trafficking, narco-terrorism and corruption. Whether that's what these actual indictments are now, we're not sure, but they have been charged in New York. What do you make of that breaking news?
This is going to be a very widely watched and anticipated trial. They certainly won't be returning to Venezuela anytime soon, and by the looks of it, I think that if you look at the state of the US justice system, they will be convicted and they will be actually spending time behind bars. I think the bigger question is now what happens in terms of local democracy and politics in Venezuela. So do either of those two opposition leaders, who are currently both in exile, not in country, return? At the same time, the regime, and interesting, the federal indictments against Maduro included those members of the government that were also connected to the cartel of the Suns. So they're still there. Does that mean that they're going to have another go at this?
Interesting, isn't it? And we do know that 82% of people in Venezuela live in poverty. The crime rate is terrible. Childhood death is terrible. I mean, it's not a good place to be. However, people were very unhappy with their president. But this can actually swing things around. They're thinking, hold on a minute, what right does a foreign country have, Trump, have to come in and disrupt our country?
Well, I think if anyone was to come here to the United Kingdom, irrespective of what you think of the Prime Minister and or the sitting government, it is within our rights to make sure that we have that vote and choice. Someone on the flip side of that could say, well, we did have a vote and it wasn't respected and the President, Maduro, decided to stay. But I think over the course of the next few hours and or days, how many people appear on the streets and whether there is violence will be very conditional as to what happened next.
Interesting. Leon, thank you very much. Just finally, what happens now? Where do we go from here?
I think there will be further commentary. All of the statements thus far have been very, very neutral in their language. So after the press conference at 4 o'clock here local, 11 o'clock in the United States, I think then people will be working out, Jonathan Powell and Keir Starmer will be working out, what on earth do we say now?
Indeed. I wouldn't want to be them, to be honest with you. Leon Cook, thank you very much for joining us today. OK, we will move on now. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. But first, it is a time, once again, to get the news headlines from Sophia Wenzel.
First 4 victims of a fire in a Swiss bar on New Year's Eve that injured 119 people and killed 40 have been identified as 2 Swiss women aged 21 and 16 and 2 Swiss men aged 18 and 16. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night despite Donald Trump's threat to intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. So far, at least 10 people have been killed and dozens arrested after a severe economic crisis sparked violent protests across the country. Britain looks set to shiver through the first week of the new year, with snow covering parts of the country and yellow snow and ice warnings in place until Monday. And it's Sunshine Saturday, the busiest day of the year for holiday bookings abroad, with package holiday bookings expected to soar. Those are your headlines for now. I'll have more news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you for your company this morning. Do remember that we are here to talk to you, and we want to know your views on, obviously, this big breaking news story, or anything you want to talk about as well, of course. gbnews.com/your say is the way to join in the conversation. Now, we do have lots more coming up on this show. We are covering the breaking story. Quite astonishing lines coming in every minute, to be honest with you, including, finally, a response from our Prime Minister, which was kind of what you expected it to be. He didn't actually say anything, but we are waiting to hear from President Donald Trump, who will be giving a press conference at 4 o'clock this afternoon, but has confirmed large-scale strikes on the Venezuelan capital of Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country. And Donald Trump, as I said, will hold that press conference. We understand now that Maduro has been indicted in America. And now, at the moment, we are showing you live pictures here from Santiago in Chile, where Venezuelans are celebrating the US operation this afternoon. We were talking about how they would react, and that's quite important. There's quite jubilant scenes there. All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. It's cold, it's going to remain bitterly cold for much of the weekend. Sunny spells today, plenty of winter sunshine, but snow showers in the forecast. A strong northerly wind across us at the moment. Arctic air bringing in frequent snow showers across particularly the north, but also coastal stretches. An icy start in places this morning and through into the afternoon. It remained bitterly cold. Plenty of winter sunshine, a cold northerly wind just making it feel that bit bitter out there. And temperature-wise, struggling to rise much above freezing for many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees in the far southwest. Add on the strength of that wind, it will feel below freezing. Further snow showers as we move into the afternoon and evening time, particularly frequent across northern Scotland, 20 centimetres or so building up over the next 24 hours on top of what already has fallen. Icy stretches and some travel disruption likely. Icy stretches for much of the country. Northern Ireland seeing wintry showers this evening time. Plenty of clear skies through the spine of the country, but either side of this, around coastal stretches in the east and the west, further snow showers, some sleet in places, icy stretches too, as temperatures fall well below freezing. And overnight, ice remains the main hazard, as well as further heavy snow showers, particularly across north and the west and down the east coast of England as well. Icy stretches here, further snow accumulations. Drifting of snow over northern Scotland in a strong northerly wind, and temperatures well below freezing, -2 to -5, perhaps as low as -10 in the glens of Scotland. It's an icy start to Sunday morning. Met Office warnings for snow and ice across much of the country. And then through the day, we'll see the wind just subtly change direction to a northwesterly, allowing further snow showers and sleet showers across western parts of the country. Best of the sunshine in the east, but temperatures are really struggling once more.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
With me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you very much for your company. And some of you are saying, oh, please don't be stern. It is a Saturday afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to bring some smiles to the show as well, but it is a really huge breaking story, and we are bringing you every development as and when it happens. We are still waiting to hear Donald Trump's press conference. But it is time now to recap on that breaking news this morning. The United States launched airstrikes on Venezuela this morning, and Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, has been captured by US Special Forces and is now in America, where he has been indicted to face trial. Live pictures, and you can see on your screen here, are from Santiago in Chile, where Venezuelans are celebrating the US operation this afternoon. As I just said, President Trump is expected to hold a press conference at 4 o'clock UK time, and we will be bringing you as and when it happens live here on GB News. OK, but this is a huge breaking story. There are different lines coming in. We heard in the last hour from Keir Starmer for the first time saying he is waiting to hear from Donald Trump, as the rest of us are as well, which does make you wonder what the hell he knew about it. Nothing, by the sounds of it. Let's find out more, shall we, about that. Former head of counter-terrorism at MOD, Chip Chapman, joins me now. Chip, good to see you. Thank you so much. Firstly, enormous story. What do you make of what's happened?
Well, I think we can now see that the three phases of pressure over the last 3 months. The first one was the sea control, which led to the drug operation. The second one was the blockade operation, a sort of economic strangulation. And you've now got what we call leadership decapitation. The key thing on that, though, is does leadership decapitation lead to regime change? And therefore, it's seeing who replaces Maduro, which is the key thing. Now, it might be that they've already compromised the Venezuelan leadership candidates to do that. What I mean by that is Maduro in August 18 was subject to a drone attack in Caracas. And so you'd have thought his security since that would have been pretty severe. So either the security has been incompetent or compromised. And we know that the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation in September meant that the CIA was able to go to work. So of the candidates, what would it look like if it was going to be a good thing for America? Well, the opposition candidate in the stolen election last year, Gonzalez, if they were to step up and take over, that would be a good thing. If the Interior Minister or the Defense Minister, Lopez or Cabello, were to take over, that would be a bad thing. They've got the military behind them. And if the Vice President Rodrigo were to take over, he's got more levers of civil economic power. But it's been a sort of patchy in terms of does a decapitation strike and the targeted removal of leadership actually work? We'll have to wait and see, of course. And it's not just getting rid of Maduro. If the first order thing, as I said, was the drugs to begin with, Maduro was designated as the leader of the cartel of the Suns, which Trump said was a network of military and political officials involved in drug trafficking. If he was just that, then of course someone will step up to take his place. Someone will also step up to take his place as the leader of Venezuela. It's whether those two things are one and the same thing, which is the key question as to whether drugs, for example, will continue to flow, or whether you've got a regime which will deal with the drugs and be amenable to American foreign policy objectives.
I mean, Chip, the US Department indicted Maduro back in 2020. So why has this happened now? Why today?
Well, that's a great question. I think the justification for Donald Trump was all to do with the drugs themselves. It's this notion from him of stop sending poison to our country, and that's been a big thing in his campaign objectives. The strategic one that some people say is trying to extract oil concessions. Now, you didn't necessarily need leadership change to do that. Maduro was certainly amenable to that, but it's, you know, the national security strategy of America, which came out recently, was sort of Monroe Doctrine stuff from the 1820s about, you know, America's spheres of influence and American lakes, and therefore they do want a regime in Venezuela which is amenable to them.
Oh, we do know, obviously, that life in Venezuela for the ordinary populace is not great. 82% of people live in poverty. It has, I mean, Caracas in particular has one of the highest murder rates in the world. A person is killed every 21 minutes in Venezuela. Lots of people are starving. They're eating rubbish, 15% of them. Child mortality is through the roof. It's a very, very unhappy population, despite, as you say, the country having the biggest oil reserves in the world, and therefore, in theory, should be one of the richest. So what happens now with regards to the interior and how people react to this? Will they react because they were sort of on their knees in any case and think, right, OK, this is a good thing, we will get regime change? Or do you think it could work the other way and they could go, hold on a minute, what right does America or any other country have to come in and dictate how our country is run?
Well, I think there are three outcomes. Firstly, if you have 3.5% of the population which have peaceful protest, any government will be overthrown. That can be negated by a crackdown by the security forces. So that's the second one. Are the security forces going to kill people who protest against that? The third one is that we do have this sort of schism in the elites. You have elite defection and say enough is enough. We need to change our foreign policy. And you get someone who's amenable to the future. This elite defection essentially meaning that Gonzalez or Machado from the opposition, because it was a stolen election for most Western democracies last year, if they can step up and take the leadership role. That will depend on those who are currently in power at the moment, the Vice President, the Interior Minister and the Defence Minister. If they start killing people, it's not over.
OK, Chip, thank you very much for joining us at the moment. It's former head of counter-terrorism at the MOD, Chip Chapman. Thank you very much for joining us on that one. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson, GBNews. There's loads more coming up on this show. We'll bring you the latest from Venezuela as President Donald Trump confirms the US has carried out those large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. But it is coming up to 10 to 1, and we have a little bit of respite for you, because if you are lucky enough to be jetting off on holiday, we've got the forecast for you to the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The weather across the southern parts of Europe may not be as cold as it is here at the moment, but it is looking pretty unsettled. There's some heavy thundery rain pushing across parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands and into southern parts of Portugal and Spain as well. Also further outbreaks of rain further east, heavy rain and hill snow spreading across many parts of the Balkans, causing some impacts here. More changeable weather to come as we go through the next few days and into the beginning of next week. I'll see you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company on this Saturday afternoon. Lots of you are getting in touch. Just want to read this one out because a lot of you are agreeing with this, obviously, on the story breaking about Venezuela and Donald Trump. Truth Matter says 82% of people in Venezuela live in poverty in an oil-rich country. That's what you get with socialism, and that's where Starmer is leading us. Now, I'm reading that opinion out, very strong opinions, as you always do. Keep them coming in, gbnews.com/your say. Now, we have some more breaking news on this situation for you coming in, that Venezuelan President Maduro has been charged with drug and terrorism offences. This is our just breaking news coming from America right now. Trump is expected to hold a press conference at 4 p.m. UK time, and we'll be bringing you that as soon as it happens. Now, Maduro was indicted with those charges 5 years ago now, in 2020. So obviously that has taken that long to get him now to America and be charged. OK, now joining me now is international lawyer James Tunbridge. James, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me. James, an amazing story. Firstly, your initial reaction to what's happened today.
Well, it's huge news. It got two legal issues. I mean, there was the first question when it all began to break as to, did he have authority to do this? What was going to be the reaction in the US? What does the US Constitution allow him to do? I think that's probably moved on a bit. That will no doubt be something that concerns legal scholars in America. But now there's the practical issue of these charges against Maduro. And I presume that they'll be doing that on a doctrine that the US has, where effectively what they say is, a foreign person that does something that impacts a US citizen or commerce is within their jurisdiction.
Right, OK, so technically what Donald Trump has done today is legally acceptable?
Well, this is actually something that I'm sure they're going to debate. It's not widely understood that under the US Constitution, only Congress can declare war. And they've only done that about 11 times. The last time was World War II, but we all know that they went to Korea, Vietnam, defended Kuwait. Now, when Bush Sr. went into Kuwait, he said that he was there to defend another nation. There was later a resolution of Congress. So, military action is clearly something that US presidents have done without Congress approving in advance. Some people argue that it's now impossible to get Congress to debate in advance because it would warn your enemies. But given that they've basically now said it was a limited operation, it's done. It's within the 90-day period, which under the war resolution of 1973, a US president has the power to do something. So I suspect people won't like it in certain quarters, but he's probably limited his actions and therefore he won't face a problem domestically. Now the focus will be on these charges and whether or not they've got the power to convict.
Now, from what I understand, these charges were first aimed at Maduro in 2020. The fact that now he's been indicted, what happens after this?
Well, obviously, with the usual reservation that I'm a British lawyer rather than an American one, but effectively they already know what they're going to charge him with. Apparently they've already done so. We haven't had the full detail. That presumably will come this afternoon British time. But effectively it's drug related principally. They have said for some time that he leads a drug cartel, and that drug cartel, if he's the head of it, is why they've got both terrorism and drug charges, because in November, they declared that cartel a terrorist organization. They'll bring those charges. There'll be some sort of arraignment hearing. He'll plead, and then they'll plan for a trial, which will sometime happen, I guess, in about 4 or 5 months.
OK, James, thank you very much for joining us. International lawyer James Tunbridge there on this fast developing story. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson, GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, including Trump's press conference, which we will bring you live. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Look, this is winter. It's flu. Flu comes in winter. Sure as eggs is eggs. There's nothing particularly special about the virus. It has mutated, but that change has made it able to spread through the community by defeating our existing immunity. But the virus itself remains the same in terms of its clinical impact. So while it's a problem at a community and population level, lots of cases, for people who catch this, it's no worse than normal seasonal flu. It's not like we've got a supercharged flu that makes people much iller. We've got a virus that's spreading better and it's come earlier. So we're seeing it rising up the sort of infectious disease rates faster for this time of year. And there are a number of reasons for that, partly because it is a different virus, it's mutated. We haven't seen this particular strain spread for a couple of years. So population immunity levels are quite low. That's why it's spreading more.
What you said there, very calm, very rational, quite reassuring, to be honest with you, seems very logical, understandable. Earlier today, the BBC decided to do a report that looked a lot like this. Let's play the clip.
The throwback, isn't it? We were used to wearing these a few years ago. Now this is the precaution being taken. Also, people are being told to make sure their hands are clean and that they're not bringing germs into the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't got time to play it all, but she goes on to, like, you know, use the hand sanitizer. Again, I'm just wondering if it's a little bit fearmongery.
Well, look, we must take flu seriously because it's a fact that if we tot up the excess mortality in the wintertime, just in the UK, and we attribute a lot of this excess mortality to flu, in an average year, maybe 5,000-6,000 people will lose their lives to flu. And in a bad year, it might be as high as 20,000. So we don't take this lightly. We're not complacent about flu.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 3rd of January, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you for your company this afternoon. We have a breaking day of news for you. Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency after President Donald Trump confirmed that the US has carried out large-scale strikes on the capital of Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro has been charged with drug and terrorism offences. Donald Trump will hold a press conference later this afternoon. Political reaction has been swift from Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, saying the attacks were unorthodox but could be a good thing, while Jeremy Corbyn has called it an unprovoked and illegal attack from the US, labelling it an act of war that puts millions of lives at risk. And here we can bring you now some live shots of the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, as people wake up to the seismic news of what has happened to their president overnight. And here is the current state of play on the Venezuelan-Colombian border, where there's an increased military presence. Live pictures you can see there. Meanwhile, across the border in Chile, Venezuelan expats, of which there have been 7 million of them recently, have gathered to celebrate the downfall of Nicolas Maduro, as he is charged with drug and terror offences, where he is currently held in the United States. And later today, we are expecting President Trump to hold a news conference in Mar-a-Lago. We will be bringing you that live as soon as we get it. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend on GB News. Thank you so much for your company. no, this show is, as I always say every week, it's a slightly different show today, obviously, because we are covering that constant breaking news story, and it is pretty seismic what's happened in Venezuela today, with Donald Trump just going in and plucking that president out, taking him to America and charging him with drug trafficking. Huge breaking story, and we are bringing you every detail of it, including waiting to hear from Donald Trump himself this afternoon. But this show, as always, is nothing without you and your views. Now, lots of you are getting in touch indeed. Lots of you also not complimentary about our own Prime Minister and the reaction we have heard, or kind of lack of reaction we've heard on this situation, and the fact that our Prime Minister, despite that special relationship, seemed to know absolutely nothing about what Donald Trump was going to do in South America. Let me know your thoughts on all of these angles at gbnews.com/your say and join in this conversation, or you can scan the QR code thingy, and one day I'll learn to point at the right bit. The screen bit's on there, scan it. Okay, but before we get stuck into all the breaking lines on this story, let's get the news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. It's 1:02. Your top story this hour. Venezuela's President Maduro and his wife have been indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges. It comes after Donald Trump hailed what he described as a brilliant operation to capture Venezuela's leader. The US president launched airstrikes on Caracas earlier this morning before confirming that Mr. Maduro and his wife had been taken into custody and flown out of the country. Republican Senator Mike Lee has said the Venezuelan president was arrested to stand trial in the US on criminal charges. The Venezuelan government said it rejects and denounces the US's military aggression. The Trump administration has accused President Maduro of heading a drug cartel and says it's cracking down on trafficking. Meanwhile, world leaders have been reacting to the news, including Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
UK leader Nigel Farage has reacted to the news, saying that while America's actions are unorthodox and contrary to international law, if they make China and Russia think twice, it may be a good thing. Elsewhere, Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night, despite Donald Trump's threat to intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. So far, at least 10 people have been killed and dozens arrested after a severe economic crisis sparked violent protests across the country. The US president had warned Iran earlier in the day that Washington was locked and loaded and would rescue demonstrators if Tehran killed any more anti-regime protesters. But Iran's foreign ministry condemned what they called intimidating remarks and threatened a swift, decisive and comprehensive response if the US intervenes. Now, sparklers on champagne bottles are the likely cause of a deadly fire at a Swiss ski resort, according to officials. The blaze on New Year's Eve injured 119 people and killed 40. Meanwhile, the first 4 victims of the fire have been identified as 2 Swiss women aged 21 and 16 and 2 Swiss men aged 18 and 16. Their bodies have been returned to their families. Pictures of teenagers that are still unaccounted for have begun to emerge, with a student who studied in England declared missing. 15-year-old Charlotte Needham, who holds French and Israeli citizenship, briefly attended the JFS School in London and Emmanuel College in Hertfordshire. In other news, 2 people have died and a third is missing after trying to help a teenage girl who was washed away into the sea off the East Yorkshire coast. That's according to reports. Police were called to Withensea at 3:15 p.m. yesterday, where a 67-year-old man was pulled unconscious from the water and died at the scene, while a second person's body was recovered that evening. Searches continue today for a third person. Britain looks set to shiver through the first week of the new year, with snow covering parts of the country. The Met Office is predicting up to 40 centimetres in Scotland and 5 centimetres across England and Wales. Yellow snow and ice warnings are in place across the southwest, northwest and east coast of England and Wales and Northern Ireland until Monday. Travel delays, cancellations, disruption on the roads and power cuts are all expected. And Elon Musk's social media platform X is facing backlash after its AI chatbot was introduced a new feature allowing people to effectively undress women without their consent. Grok can take pictures from social media platform X, including of real people, and digitally alter them to remove their clothes. That's despite the platform's acceptable use policy prohibiting such activity. In a statement on X, Grok said, "We've identified lapses in safeguards and are urgently fixing them. Child sexual abuse material is illegal and prohibited." Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you for your company this afternoon. Now, we have got a huge hour coming up of breaking news for you, including waiting for that press conference with Donald Trump. We are starting, obviously, with the huge news that US officials have now announced that Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been charged with drug and terror offences. The Prime Minister has reacted to the attack, so let's have a listen.
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
OK. Let's now talk to a defence analyst, Chris Newton. Chris, good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Firstly, initial reaction to what Trump has done today.
Good afternoon. Yes, the operation itself, looking at it from a purely military point of view, is a very impressive operation. They have suppressed the air defences very quickly, or the air defences weren't working, and they carried out this extraction operation very quickly, very speedily, and they managed to capture Maduro. At least that's what's been reported. Extremely quickly, but now is the situation. Now we come to the situation going forward. What's the situation in Venezuela at the moment? What the damage is? To what extent are the remnants of the regime still in control? What are the reaction of other actors? Cuba, Russia, China. Europe, UK, you play the clip from Starmer there. Can a new administration be established in Venezuela? Is that possible? Can elections be carried out? And is there an insurgency going to form as a result if there is a new administration? So a brilliant start to the operation, but there's still a long way to go. I think there's still lots of questions unanswered, and hopefully we'll get those this afternoon with the or some of those answered with the press conference with Trump.
As you say, Chris, incredibly well-planned military action here. In and out, from what we hear, very, very few casualties, if any, just targeting the military sites. Trump himself has said this was months in the planning and has gone exceedingly well. But as everybody involved in the military knows, that you don't do these sort of things that can have global consequences without that exit strategy. Do you think the exit strategy will have been planned as well as the start has?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this took many months planning, and you could see the build-up, over the past few months in the Caribbean. And usually, when you deploy a force of that size, it's usually an indication that Trump's or the government is very serious. One hopes that there is an exit strategy, and one hopes that the Americans have learned from the mistakes in Iraq in particular. At the moment, we just don't know. We don't know what the next phase of this event is going to be, but hopefully those lessons have been learned. Hopefully there is a plan. There is clearly some cooperation with the opposition. That the opposition leader was sent into exile. Clearly the Americans have had some degree of intelligence, very good intelligence actually, from inside the Maduro regime in order to be able to locate and capture him. So hopefully that there has been a plan for the exit strategy. But as the Prussian General von Moltke said, no plan survives first contact, and we'll have to see how things go and whether an insurgency sort of arises, which puts a spanner in the works.
Now, Chris, obviously America is one of the UK's biggest allies. We have that special relationship. Whether that actually exists anymore is another matter. Is it conceivable that America acted on their own and that no other European countries were told? I mean, our own Prime Minister looked more startled than most of us just turning on our tellies this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, the Americans have been very clear that their priority is now their backyard, that the Western Hemisphere is sort of their hemisphere, and they're going to pursue their interests there, and that it's going to be a priority. Now, there has been reported tensions over this possible operation with the UK and the Europeans. There's been reports of the Europeans sort of reducing intelligence sharing, over concerns that this operation doesn't meet sort of legal requirements. So it could very well be that Trump has acted unilaterally and has decided to act alone, given those tensions with the Europeans, and that might be one of the causes, for example, why there has been increased tensions over Ukraine, and why Trump has gone cold on Ukraine and European security over the past few months. So as you can see from Keir Starmer's statement, he's very cautious. He mentions international law, but he doesn't outright criticize Trump. So there is the concern about international law there from the UK, but you're right. Starmer does look a bit startled, and who knows? Yeah.
Chris, as you can see on your screen now, we are showing Venezuelans. These ones are in Chile. They are celebrating. They seem very happy. As we know, it was a dictatorship, and 82% of Venezuelans in Venezuela were living in poverty. For an oil-rich, the biggest oil-rich nation in the world, many of the ordinary people were living a very, very miserable life. So the people at the moment seem very happy about what has happened. But Chris, what message does this send to people like, Russia and China? Trump has gone in there to another country, democratically, in inverted commas, elected leader, remove that leader. What message is that giving to the likes of Putin?
Well, Trump likes to send a big message at the start of the year. In 2020, for example, he took out Qasem Soleimani, Quds Force commander. I think it was actually on the 3rd of January as well. So he has something about sort of the 3rd of January and making these big grand statements. But it is very, very important in the context of the Second Cold War. And Ukraine is the first flashpoint of the Second Cold War. Venezuela is the second. And this ultimately demonstrates to Russia and China, who are seeking influence in South America, Latin America, and they have relations with Maduro and so forth. Trump is ultimately saying to them, this, he's putting his marker on South Americans, saying this is where I'm going to have influence, and this is where Russia and China aren't going to have that influence. So you have to see it in the context, yes, of the drug cartels, which was the official explanation for this, but there's a whole wider situation going on. And that is with the Second Cold War and Trump, establishing his force, his resolve in this wider global confrontation with China and Russia.
And Chris, I mean, it's a very, very good point you make there, because lots of comments today about the oil and the fact that, you know, that was important to Trump, also about stopping the drugs trade, also important to Trump. But is the message he's sending to the rest of the world more important than both of those things put together?
It's part of the message. We know that Trump is, you know, is very much concerned about control of resources, minerals, oil, that kind of thing. We see that in Ukraine. But this, I mean, what he's been doing today and also over Christmas with the strikes in Nigeria, he's very clearly sending out the message that America's back, America's going to use force again to achieve its interests, and that's the clear message, and that's something that China and Russia and other actors, and of course this is conducted on the backdrop of the protests in Iran as well, and Trump has made a threat with regards to Iran as well. Trump is ultimately saying, look, I've been talking for months about Venezuela, what I might do. I've been talking for months about Nigeria and the Christians there. He is now following through on those promises, on those rhetorics, and he wants to establish himself as someone who says, look, you've got to take my word seriously. I've said I'm going to do this, and I've delivered. So yes, Trump is sending a very powerful message with these actions today, and these are extremely important, and this will set the tone for the next stage of Cold War II.
And Chris, if any of the UN nations wanted to do something to punish Trump for this behaviour, because he has, it would seem, broken international law, do you think they will? Do you think they should?
They will take this up, and I think they are taking this up with the UN Security Council. I mean, the reality is that America is immensely powerful. We've seen with Trump's tariffs policy last year what he can do, with actors which don't toe his line, don't agree with his policy. So ultimately, he holds the advantage with most of the actors in the international community. The big question is how Russia and China will respond. I'm not quite sure they'll be able to do much other than perhaps try and foment this guerrilla resistance, via Cuba. And of course, Cuba is an important actor because it's it's right next door, right bang in that region. And it's important, and it'd be interesting to see what Cuba does as well, because they reportedly have operatives in Venezuela and have enormous influence in Venezuela as well. So yes, the Americans are very powerful, but as we've seen in the past, the way to resist America is through guerrilla warfare, insurgency, and so forth. And it remains to be seen whether an insurgency will form in Venezuela after these actions today.
And Chris, finally, talking global superpowers. Now, China, Russia, America. Which of those is the global superpower at the moment after today?
At the moment it's still the United States, but the China, China is contesting that. It's already built a navy which has overtaken the Americans in terms of numbers. Russia is more of a regional power. It doesn't have that ability to project military power in the way in which the US has been doing. China is developing that capability, but is yet to project that military power beyond its region. So in terms of the Cold War II, it's not America versus the Soviet Union. The two principal players are America and China, with Russia as the junior partner of China.
And Chris, I'm not even going to bother asking you where the UK comes into that equation because I don't think we do count, do we? Chris New, and thank you very much for joining us today. It's defence analysis there. Thank you very much. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency after President Donald Trump confirmed that the US had carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. All of that and much more to come, including that press conference with Donald Trump himself. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 25 minutes past 1, and this is The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company. OK, time to recap on the breaking news of the day. The United States launched airstrikes on Venezuela this morning, and Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, has been captured by US Special Forces and is now in America, where he has been indicted to face trial on drug charges. President Trump is expected to hold a press conference at 4 p.m. local UK time. We think it might be earlier, so do stay with us, and we will be bringing you as soon as we have it here on GB News. So now let's find out what actually this means for Venezuela. We're joined now by Jose Enrique Arioca, managing editor of the publication America's Quarterly. Jose, thank you so much for joining us. A simple first question, what does this mean for the people of Venezuela?
It represents a turning point. Definitely, this people in Caracas I've been talking to and in contact with earlier this morning has been in shock. All right, this although this has been a scenario that in some way somehow was presented, in recent analysis. The fact that it took place this morning, with the scope and with the presence of approximately 10 helicopters, Special Force helicopters, flying over the skies in Caracas, dropping bombs, and another 3 cities, is definitely a shocking development. Something that Venezuela haven't experienced in recent years. And the fact that this attack was carried out by an international power such as the United States is also add an additional layer of meaning, reverberations, and absolutely implications. So right now there is a lot of uncertainty as expected, a lot of moving parts, and with a very dynamic situation overall.
Just reading some more breaking news, which I'd like to put to you. One of the analysts for one of the groups in South America has said the US attack was its largest military operation in Latin America since the 1989 invasion of Panama. What happens next is very important. So far, avoided direct confrontation with US forces, but deployments on the streets point to efforts to contain unrest. Do you think we could see that? Do you think we could see more unrest on the streets? So far, we are seeing people celebrating. But what do you think to that statement that we could be seeing unrest on the streets of Caracas?
It's hard to predict. It's hard to predict, but the fact is, the Maduro's regime has been weakened since last year, since when they decided just to take over power after losing the presidential election on July 28, confiscating political and economic power in the country, and therefore the majority of the Venezuelan population nowadays is against the regime. Not even the regular citizen, but even in the military ranks, pretty much across the board, the force and the military court voted against Maduro. So this is a government has been very unpopular, and therefore, I don't see room for a chaotic reaction on civil.
Hello, are you still there, Jose, still?
Yes. I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, sorry, carry on, please do continue.
Perfect, yes, sorry for that. So I don't see room for political unrest, at least in a sustained basis in the days to come, just simply for the fact that the Maduro regime was widely unpopular. However, people will actually go on the streets to claim a clear path to the next chapter in the political history of the country. How the government will react to this, if whether or not they're going to follow what the Venezuelan constitution called, which is calling for presidential elections 30 days after the actual vacancy of power by the president, and how the military forces, the armed forces in Venezuela, will be reacting to all of this, the orders that will actually follow, and so on. So far, the only Venezuelan official that has appeared live on TV, on the Venezuelan national TV, has been Diosdado Cabello, who is the interior minister. It's sort of like the Homeland Security minister, calling to be calm and ready to act if additional attacks actually takes place in Venezuela.
Trump has said that months of planning went into this. We're not entirely sure whether any of neighbouring countries had helped in any way. Trinidad and Tobago have come out and said, no, we had nothing to do with it. Do you think Trump had inside help from inside Venezuela, inside the government, with what's happened today?
It's hard to just say with a high degree of certainty, but definitely the fact that this operation was carried out in such a surgical quote-unquote, procedure with very little casualties so far, restricted to specifically 4 cities in Venezuela. Speak of a lot of inside information, not only planning and impeccable execution. We haven't heard yet an official tally on the death tolls of these, attacks in these 4 cities. But all indications point that probably that death toll is minimal. And therefore, it lead me to believe that, yes, definitely there has been an element of inside help, probably not only from the civilian population or civilian forces, but also within the military. Okay, this is a very, very fluid situation, and this is important for our audience to keep in mind. But definitely speak of an impeccable execution in the earliest hours of this Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Venezuela's history of governments and presidents has been up and down, to say the very least. This is probably one of the most monumental things that's ever happened to the country, isn't it?
Well, yes, by far, this is the most shocking political event in recent history. Again, it's not only because you are capturing the head of the state, regardless of the attribution or the qualification of that specific person, and it's not only him, but also his wife. And this is a very a very important element to keep in mind for any political analysis and for whatever it will unfold from here, because Maduro's wife was a key element, a key component in all the infrastructure and all the operation of his government. And it's very telling that he was captured. Not only, he.
I think we've lost you there. That was Jose Enrique Arrioca, who is managing editor of the publication America's Quarterly in the United States, saying this is the most monumental thing that has ever happened in the history of Venezuela. And the history of Venezuela, if you look through it, is pretty monumental in its own right. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. But first, it's time for the news headlines.
Good afternoon. Your headlines at 1:33. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has reacted to US strikes on Venezuela and said the UK is not involved and we must establish facts. It comes as Venezuela's President Maduro and his wife have been captured and indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges. The first 4 victims of a fire in a Swiss bar on New Year's Eve that injured 119 people and killed 40 have been identified as 2 Swiss women aged 21 and 16 and 2 Swiss men aged 18 and 16. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night despite Donald Trump's threat to intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. So far, at least 10 people have been killed and dozens arrested after a severe economic crisis sparked violent protests across the country. Britain looks set to shiver through the first week of the new year, with snow covering parts of the country and yellow snow and ice warnings in place until Monday. And it's Sunshine Saturday, the busiest day of the year for holiday bookings abroad, with package holidays bookings expected to soar. Those are your headlines for now. I'll have more news for you at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you at home for joining us this afternoon. There is lots more coming up on the show today. Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency after President Donald Trump confirmed that the US has carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. We're bringing you live updates on this breaking story, and it's moving very, very fast ahead of a press conference with Donald Trump, which we are expecting this afternoon. You won't want to miss it, so stay with us. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. It's cold, it's going to remain bitterly cold for much of the weekend. Sunny spells today, plenty of winter sunshine, but snow showers in the forecast. A strong northerly wind across us at the moment. Arctic air bringing in frequent snow showers across particularly the north, but also coastal stretches. An icy start in places this morning and through into the afternoon. It remained bitterly cold. Plenty of winter sunshine, a cold northerly wind just making it feel that bit bitter out there, and temperature-wise struggling to rise much above freezing for many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees in the far southwest. Add on the strength of that wind, it will feel below freezing. Further snow showers as we move into the afternoon and evening time, particularly frequent across northern Scotland, 20 centimetres or so building up over the next 24 hours on top of what already has fallen. Icy stretches and some travel disruption likely. Icy stretches for much of the country. Northern Ireland seeing wintry showers this evening time. Plenty of clear skies through the spine of the country, but either side of this around coastal stretches in the east and the west, further snow showers, some sleet in places, icy stretches too as temperatures fall well below freezing. And overnight ice remains the main hazard, as well as further heavy snow showers, particularly across north and the west and down the east coast of England as well. Icy stretches here, further snow accumulations. Drifting of snow over northern Scotland in a strong northerly wind, and temperatures well below freezing, -2 to -5, perhaps as low as -10 in the glens of Scotland. It's an icy start to a Sunday morning. Met Office warnings for snow and ice across much of the country. And then through the day, we'll see the wind just subtly change direction to a northwesterly, allowing further snow showers and sleet showers across western parts of the country. Best of the sunshine in the east, but temperatures are really struggling once more.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this afternoon. We have got huge breaking stories for you all afternoon. The US has captured Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and his wife and launched a large-scale strike against the country. Officials say he has been indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges and will face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. President Trump is expected to hold a press conference this afternoon. We will bring you the live coverage of that on GB News. So we think it's about 4 o'clock UK time, but don't move just in case you know what Donald Trump's like sometimes with press conferences. But we will be covering it live, so you don't want to miss it. OK, now let's talk about the American side of this and how these things work in America. Let's talk to Communications Director and former advisor to Bill Clinton, Jim Kennedy, who joins me now live from New York. Jim, good to see you. Thank you very much. Firstly, what's the reaction like in America to what's happened today?
Well, in the political sphere, some Democrats have expressed opposition to this. We're going to see where others stand. Back in the 1980s, I worked for Senator Joe Lieberman, a Democrat, and he was supportive when George Bush went into Panama at that time, although he kind of stood alone or among a few Democrats in that way. So I think you're going to see some partisan division here. But I think broadly, the American public will support what happened because they have been supportive of the tough action that President Trump has been taking against the narco traffickers.
And this is about drugs. That's what the indictment is about, isn't it? It is about drug trafficking, and Trump has made a big point of his presidency about stopping the drugs coming into America. And we've seen shocking scenes in your cities of zombies walking the streets. That's been a big part of his presidency.
Yes, I think that's why the American public has shown support for these actions. Of course, there are international repercussions here. I think this is a blow to Cuba and Nicaragua, which have been allied with Venezuela, and also a blow to Putin. So I think there are some positive international developments. However, on the domestic side, I think there'll be a short-term boost, but longer term, it probably doesn't have a big effect, such as on the midterm elections, because when a crisis lessens overseas, then that brings bread and butter issues more to the fore in the American political sphere.
And Jim, just talk me through how this action would have been okayed. I mean, would Congress had to give approval? Could Donald Trump have done this by himself? How would that have happened?
Well, President Reagan took action basically on his own in Grenada in 1983, and Bush did with Panama as well. I'm presuming there may have been some level of consultation. Some members of Congress think there should be congressional authorization, but most presidents disagree. I believe there probably was some consultation, so they were aware of what's happening. By the way, this is a real testament to the ability of the American intelligence community and the American military. It seems to be a very precise and effective use of such force. And so that's something I think the American people broadly will support.
We're seeing live pictures on your screen now of Venezuelans celebrating just across the border in Chile. Jim, coming back to you, this has been kept really, really quiet. I mean, our own Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, when he finally made a comment on it today, looked startled. We're drawing the conclusion that America didn't tell any of the allies in Europe what they were planning.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was surprising, although perhaps not shocking. There certainly has been an escalation of U.S. Actions here, not only the strikes against the boats and the seizure of some of the tankers, but also a pretty strong buildup of American forces. So clearly something was in the works. But of course, the exact timing had needed to be quite secret and apparently very effective.
And Jimmy, it's the military-wise, it was pinpoint perfect operation. I mean, from what we understand, there are very few, if any, casualties. It was in and out. I mean, this is a real message about America's military power to enemies like China and Russia.
Yeah, I think this is the second big example of what President Trump has done, looking at Iran in the first case and here, where there was strong but very short-term and effective action with pinpoint accuracy. That's what he has favored. Obviously, he's been against long-term wars and has not gotten involved in ground conflicts, which is part of his campaign promise, frankly. But when you can use your effective military in a pinpoint way like this, it sends a message to people like Putin and to China and others that we are willing to use force in very defined circumstances.
Now, what you alluded to, President Trump has always said, I am the president of peace. I mean, indeed, it's sort of like, the Nobel Peace Prize. What would you say to the people criticising him, saying, now, well, this is the polar opposite of peace. This is going into another country where ostensibly they have a democratically elected leader. We all know that's not the case, but that is how it's sold to us. And literally interfering in the way another country is run. You could say that Putin behaves in a similar way. What would you say to those people?
Well, again, this was not sort of an invasion. This really is somewhat less than what we saw in Grenada and Panama, where a large number of troops actually went into those countries. This is not the case here. It's much more effective use of air power, effective use of American intelligence, and it also sends a message, and I think could potentially broaden hopes for peace, but with the Iranian strike lead to more peace in the Middle East, and here I think more stability and opportunity here in the Western Hemisphere. So that's the goal anyways. Obviously, we're going to have to see what the repercussions are. There's certainly economic implications as well as diplomatic ones internationally. But short term, it could be a boost for the president and for American interests.
OK, Jim, thank you very much for joining us. That is a former advisor to Bill Clinton, Jim Kennedy in New York. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, let me know what you think about this story at gbnews.com/your say. Join in this conversation about any elements of the breaking story we are covering today. We are still waiting to hear Donald Trump's press conference, which we really don't want to miss. I mean, even our own Prime Minister doesn't want to miss that because he hasn't got a clue what's going on either, has he? I'm Dawn Newsom, this is GB News. But if you are, handbrake turned on. It is coming up to 1:45. If you are in search of some holiday sun to escape all the news that's breaking on your TV, you can take us on the radio as well, by the way. Here's a forecast for those top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The weather across the southern parts of Europe may not be as cold as it is here at the moment, but it is looking pretty unsettled. There's some heavy thundery rain pushing across parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands and into southern parts of Portugal and Spain as well. Also further outbreaks of rain further east, heavy rain and hill snow spreading across many parts of the Balkans, causing some impacts here. More changeable weather to come as we go through the next few days and into the beginning of next week. I'll see you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, pub bosses say they face financial ruin after Rachel Reeves' stealth tax raid in the budget as pint prices are ramped up, opening hours are cut and staff are laid off in desperate attempts to keep running.
So this morning we're asking, would you pay more for your pint to save local pubs?
Well, joining us now is pub owner Mark Bridgen and Communications Officer for the IEA, Reem Ibrahim. Really good to see you both this morning. Mark, let's start with you. We've spoken to you a lot about your lovely pub. Would you want people to pay more for a pint in order to save your business?
Well, it's looking like the only option. Yeah, with the increased taxes on every level and now the stress around rates increase and valuation agency, I don't know anyone that is making any money, so it feels like the only thing to do is to raise your prices. The irony is that actually at the moment many of us are actually putting down our prices to try and get people through the doors. You know, in a desperate bid to stay alive, we're having to, try and offer even more value.
Do you think the government is just tone deaf to the plight of our landlords of pubs and restaurants across the country?
They absolutely are. I mean, over 21,000 pubs have closed since 1980. That's half of that in the last 2 decades alone. So I really do think that the government have tax regulated, restricted pubs to the oblivion. But this is where I disagree with Mark. I don't think it's up to businesses themselves to say, you know what, we're going to remove our profit margins even further. We know that the hikes in national insurance contributions and increase in the minimum wage have a huge impact on small businesses.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson, covering the breaking story for you of Donald Trump going into Venezuela and plucking the president out to face drug charges in New York. So now let's go straight to Associate Fellow, International Institute for Strategic Studies, Mariano de Alba. Mariano, thank you very much for joining me. Am I correct in saying that you are Venezuelan?
Yes, I am.
Excellent, good. So what do you make of this story today?
Well, it's a groundbreaking development. Obviously, Mr. Maduro was illegitimately exercising power, especially after the presidential elections in July last year. He didn't want to leave power, and he basically stayed in power, exercising huge amounts of repression against the Venezuelan people, who especially came out to protest after he was declared the winner after a fraudulent election in July last year. At the same time, I have to say that obviously, as a precedent, this is really worrisome because it opens the door not only for the United States, but to any other regional or world power to basically do the same, to try to impose its will by force. At the same time, it is also true that Mr. Maduro had been indicted by the United States substantially for narco trafficking since March 2020. And if you see the announcement of President Trump announcing his capture, he said that this was not only a military operation in Venezuela with several military strikes, but also an operation that was carried out in conjunction with law enforcement authorities, which presumably means that now Maduro will face U.S. justice.
We do know that obviously life in Venezuela for most ordinary people is pretty miserable. 82% of Venezuelans live in poverty, and a person is murdered every 21 minutes in Venezuela. Life is miserable. Do you think the majority of people will be celebrating what has happened?
I think so. I think that the majority of Venezuelans will see this as with a lot of expectation. I think that Venezuelans who want the restoration of democracy, but also, a substantial improvement in the quality of life, have been in similar moments before, namely when Hugo Chavez died in the year 2013. And that did not lead to the restitution of democracy, but a substantial worsening of the living conditions in Venezuela. So I think that right now there's a lot of expectation. I think that the majority of the country, at least, will be celebrating that Maduro is out of power and he has been captured by the U.S. But at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty as how things will unfold from now. Let's remember that the person that was duly elected last year is in exile in Spain, Edmundo González Urrutia. The leader of the opposition, María Corina Machado, who recently won the Nobel Peace Prize, it's also out of the country. So I think that right now, in the next several hours and days, it all will come down to a decision of the Venezuelan military. They will have to decide whether to continue to support Chavismo and the people that Maduro left he's part of his team. They will have to decide if they support their continuation in power, or they will have to perhaps open a negotiation with the U.S. and invite Edmundo González Urrutia, the person that was duly elected last year, to return to the country and assume the president. I think that the most likely scenario as of now is the first one that I described. But obviously the capture of Maduro and the fact that he's no longer in power in Venezuela opens the possibility of starting to start the work towards a democratic transition in the country.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us there. That's Mariana de Alba, who is Associate Fellow, International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you so much for joining us today. OK, we will be covering this as a live story for the next hour, including that press conference with Donald Trump, which will be live in full details on GB News. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up, including that press conference. So don't move anywhere. We'll see you after this short break for the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains very cold through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week as well. Snow showers for some of us, icy stretches for most of us, and some winter sunshine as well. Cold northerly airflow, air coming all the way down from the Arctic, bringing a bitter feel to things for the rest of Saturday and into Sunday as well. Clearing skies this evening, temperatures widely falling below freezing. The blues on the map show that frost and ice developing very quickly, and as we head overnight, further wintry showers, so sleet and snow showers feeding in from the north, largely around northern, western and eastern parts of the country. Central areas staying dry, but temperatures widely below freezing, -2 to -5 in the countryside, perhaps even down to -10 in the glens of Scotland. And those snow showers continue to feed in on quite a strong northerly wind, so they will move through quickly, but they will be heavy. Further accumulations possible. Met Office snow and ice warnings remain out right through the rest of the week. weekend. Wintry showers across Northern Ireland as well Sunday morning. Plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but Wales down into the West Country, icy stretches and further sleet and snow showers in places. Very little changes through the day on Sunday. We remain cold with that northerly breeze. Plenty of winter sunshine, particularly across central and eastern parts of England, but Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales will see further sleet and snow showers. The snow continuing to accumulate, icy stretches in places, and temperatures once again not rising much above freezing. For many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees across the far southwest by the afternoon. Into Sunday evening, further bands of sleet and snow pushing southwards, particularly across the west. Snow and ice accumulating in places, and it stays cold into Monday. Signs of something a little less cold, though, come the middle of the week. Temperatures just rising a little.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello from the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland. We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000. And in 2026, we're giving you the chance to win it all.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 3rd of January, and this is the weekend on GB News. Huge breaking news story for you today. Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency after President Donald Trump confirmed that the US had carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. President Nicolas Maduro has now been charged with drug and terrorism offences. Donald Trump will hold a press conference later this afternoon, and we will be there live for you. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has reacted to the news, saying that while America's actions are unorthodox and contrary to international law, if they made China and Russia think twice, it would be a good thing. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, confirmed that the UK was not involved in the operation.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Meanwhile, Colombia has deployed armed forces to the Venezuelan border amid concern over an influx of refugees. But further south in Chile, Venezuelan expats have gathered to celebrate the downfall of Nicolas Maduro as he is charged with those drug and terror offences in America this afternoon. And later today, we are, as I said, expecting President Donald Trump to hold that news conference in Mar-a-Lago. We'll be bringing you that live on the channel as soon as we get it. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for your company on this extremely important news day. It's a Saturday afternoon if some of you are still confused after the Christmas New Year thing. But we are bringing you the breaking story because it's a story that, although it happens in Venezuela, it has global consequences, and not least, where do we go from here and what kind of leadership are we getting from our Prime Minister at this moment in time? Lots of you aren't impressed with the statement that Keir Starmer has put out, many saying that rabbit in headlights spring to mind. It does appear, though, that neither Keir Starmer nor any other European leaders were involved in this, and it does beg the question, were they even told that it was going to happen? I don't think they were, do you? Let me know what you think about this story, gbnews.com/your say, and indeed anything else you want to talk about this afternoon, join in that conversation. You can either get in touch or you can scan the QR code. There. I can never point at it. You know, the QR code thing, in any case, it works. Get in touch, let's have a chat, shall we? But before we get on to the main stories, and we are waiting to hear from Donald Trump, remember, let's get the news bulletins with Sophia Wendler.
Dawn, thank you. It's 3 minutes past 2. Your top story this hour. Venezuela's President Maduro and his wife have been indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges. It comes after Donald Trump hailed what he described as a brilliant operation to capture Venezuela's leader. The US president launched airstrikes on Caracas earlier this morning before confirming that Maduro and his wife had been taken into custody and flown out of the country. Republican Senator Mike Lee said the Venezuelan president was arrested to stand trial in the US on criminal charges. The Venezuelan government said it rejects and denounces the US's military aggression. The Trump administration has accused President Maduro of heading a drug cartel and says it's cracking down on trafficking. Meanwhile, world leaders have been reacting to the news, including Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Elsewhere, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has reacted to the news, saying that while America's actions are unorthodox and contrary to international law, if they make China and Russia think twice, it may be a good thing. Elsewhere now, Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night, despite Donald Trump's threat to intervene in rapidly spreading unrest. So far, at least 10 people have been killed and dozens arrested after a severe economic crisis sparked violent protests across the country. The US president had warned Iran earlier in the day that Washington was locked and loaded and would rescue demonstrators if Tehran killed any more anti-regime protesters. But Iran's foreign ministry condemned what they called intimidating remarks and threatened a swift, decisive and comprehensive response if the US intervenes. In other news now, sparklers on champagne bottles are the likely cause of a deadly fire at a Swiss ski resort, according to officials. The blaze on New Year's Eve injured 119 people and killed 40. Meanwhile, the first 4 victims of the fire have been identified as 2 Swiss women aged 21 and 16 and 2 Swiss men aged 18 and 16. Their bodies have been returned to their families. Now, 2 people have died and a third is missing after trying to help a teenage girl who was washed away in the sea off the East Yorkshire coast. Police were called to Withensea at 3:15 p.m. yesterday, where a 67-year-old man was pulled unconscious from the water and sadly died at the scene, while a second person's body was recovered that evening. Searches continue today for a third person. Mass migration has been used to prop up Britain's economic issues and is storing up future problems. That's a warning from UK's former border Tsar. Professor Alan Manning says high levels of net migration will be costly in the future as people age and need to use public services such as the NHS. The Telegraph reports that the average low-earning migrant who moves to the UK aged 25 will cost the government more overall than they contribute in tax from the moment they arrive. Britain looks set to shiver through the first week of the new year with snow covering parts of the country. The Met Office is predicting up to 40 centimetres in Scotland and 5 centimetres across England and Wales. Yellow snow and ice warnings are in place across the southwest, northwest and east coast of England and Wales and Northern Ireland until Monday. Travel delays, cancellations, disruption on the roads and power cuts are all expected. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now, before we get back into the main story, I'm aware that I haven't read hardly any of your messages out, so I just want to read a couple out. Joe Averages has said, Starmer has finally found out how utterly insignificant he really is. And Elizabeth has also said, how could it be pinpoint perfect if the world had been told in advance? Yeah, absolutely. And James has said, could Trump come over here and do the same and take Starmer away and put him on trial for crimes against UK people? Funnily enough, lots of you are agreeing with that one. Couldn't possibly comment, but do keep them coming in at gbnews.com/your say. OK. Now, officials say Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro has been indicted in New York on those drugs and weapons charges and will face the full force of American justice. President Trump is expected to hold a press conference at 4 o'clock UK time, and we will be bringing you that live as and when it happens. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has reacted to the attacks. Have a listen.
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
OK, so let's go live to America now and talk to GB News presenter Bev Turner. Oh, actually, no, Bev, you are actually in London, I understand. Just for once, you're not in America, where you do an incredible job on that late live show. Bev, in London, tell us about the American reaction to this story.
You know, Dawn, it's going to be really interesting to see what President Trump says in this press conference. I think it might have moved to 4:30 UK time now. He's going to be at home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. And normally every morning, journalists who are connected to the White House will have an email statement. We haven't had anything about this yet. So it will be fascinating to see what President Trump says. Now, I don't know how much of this has been discussed on the GB News today, but there has been a huge amount of discussion in DC over the last few months since this has been bubbling away, that this is not actually about Venezuela. It's not actually about drugs. It's all about China. It's implausible to think that if Donald Trump wanted to stop drugs coming into his country, that he would need to blow boats out of the water. He was asked by a journalist actually at the White House just a few weeks ago about whether he would use the Coast Guard to do that. Why wasn't he using the Coast Guard? It would be very simple. And he said, and he snapped back, and it was the last line of the press conference, and he said, we need to tell Venezuela not to F with America. And then he said, thank you, everybody, and he walked out of the room. Now, his frustration with Maduro is his incredibly close relationship with China. This is, some analysts say, a proxy war against Beijing and Xi Jinping. Venezuela is $60 billion in debt to China. It has been for the last 20 years, building this close relationship to the frustration of America. Now, how does Venezuela pay back China? It pays it back in very cheap oil. And so Donald Trump is actually, some would say, via this action, removing Maduro as a very close ally of Xi Jinping and actually hitting China where it hurts. He's hit them by bombing Iran, he hit them in Gaza, and he's hitting them again. China has many companies which are deeply invested in building Venezuela's infrastructure, rebuilding its ports, helping its telecommunications. And of course, there is no private company that is allowed to operate in other countries from China unless the Chinese government can use that country for national security means also. So this, I believe, and many people do, other analysts are saying the same thing, this is not about waging war against a small South American country. He doesn't need to do that. It's not about drugs, but it's very much about hitting China where it hurts right at the beginning of the year. And one of the biggest challenges for President Trump in 2026 is to control China, to control the BRICS currencies as well. Brazil, Russia, India, and China working together so that they can maintain dollar dominance across the world, because that is going to be at the top of President Trump's to-do list when he gets back into office next week. And so I think this sends a very powerful message to the rest of the world, but particularly to Xi Jinping. We are not going to let you get away with everything in 2026. We know you're poised for dominance, but we're going to hit you where it hurts.
Interesting, Bev. And how do you think this will go down with the American voters? We got the midterms coming up.
It's a very good question, Dawn, because of the hashtag America First vision for this government. Now, when they started via Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. Remember, they changed the State Department from the Department of Defense to the Department of War, which was a very aggressive change of language. When they started to bomb those boats, and I believe they've killed at least 100 people now, it was landing fairly well with the American population. Now, the left-wing press in America didn't like it. They used it, of course, as a stick to say that Donald Trump operates outside of the usual security rules around the world and that he was breaking global rules and laws around attacking other countries. But for the American people, they could see their president raging a war against a drug cartel. And there is not a single person in America who does not know someone who has connections with or problems with drug addiction. And so selling that action as a war on drugs actually landed very well with the American public. They would shrug and say, well, great, he's doing what he needs to do to protect us, to protect our family members, our children, our teenagers who might get involved in drugs. He's doing it for us. And that probably is a nice to have consequence of this action was the elimination or the certainly the reduction of drugs coming into America via Venezuela. But as I say, there is probably not enough of the media around the world, and in America particularly, talking about this as for what it really is. This is an administration who are poised geopolitically at a very critical time across the world when America is at risk of losing some of its dominance, partly because of its America First agenda, because so much policy is about looking after domestic issues whilst also admittedly stopping wars around the world. We know that President Trump is very proud of this title as the President of Peace. But in the same time, he has to be very careful with the midterms of how that plays with the electorate. Is he doing this for America? Is he trying to assert global dominance? And if he is, he has to convince the MAGA base, who only really want him to deal with American issues, that this is in their interests as well when they're seeing their taxpayers' money spent in this way. But that's what makes it such a difficult communications job for the White House. Do they mention the China word in the press conference this afternoon? I would very much expect not, because this is the veneer of respectability, is the suggestion that this is being done to protect American citizens in a drug war. And admittedly, Maduro is part of that drug cartel world. He is involved in that, of course, but also it is, as I say, I think possibly geopolitically much more complicated than that, because you have to ask why. As always, why has President Trump taken this action so soon into the new year? It cannot simply be about stopping the crossing of drugs into his country.
It's interesting, Bev, isn't it? Always look at the story behind the story, because there is always one. Obviously, the one thing lots of people are commenting on watching and listening to us today, Bev, are how little and how startled our own Prime Minister looked. I mean, you've obviously seen the clip when he was asked about this, and it's like, well, we weren't involved. I'm a stickler for international law. And what do you think this says about the special relationship between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer in particular, as two men?
I honestly don't think that the Trump government will have woken up this morning and really given two hoots about what Keir Starmer thinks about this. To be frank, that relationship is a special relationship, but I think President Trump would see that as a safe relationship. It isn't one that he will lie awake at night and worry about. What he does lie awake at night and worry about is his relationship with China, and he will not want Keir Starmer to get in the way of that at all. Venezuela is paralyzed economically by global sanctions. It was in May this year, actually, that Beijing publicly gave them another $1 billion of support. And of course, Keir Starmer will be aware of this. I would like to think that he's aware of the depths behind this. There's bad leadership sitting over cheap oil all around the world, and that is what President Trump is going after. Does it mean that Keir Starmer really has a dog in this fight? Possibly, possibly not. It's hard at this stage to see how this could impact upon the UK in any meaningful way. It may affect the oil price, I suppose, potentially beneficial to us, perhaps, but it's much more. This is, as I say, this is an international issue which should presumably not end up on our door anytime soon. It just, what it does is it's a game of chess, and it places political leaders all around the world in very difficult positions. What do they say publicly, and how does that cast them as whether they are in support of Trump or not, whilst nobody is really talking about the issue that this is most likely about. So I'd be interested. I was rather surprised, Dawn, I don't mind admitting, about Nigel Farage's statement about this being unconventional. And I'm surprised in some ways that Mr. Farage came out quite soon on this and commented. But again, it does sort of show you that when it comes to reform, they want to be different to the parties. They want to be straightforward. They want to talk from the heart. Whereas Keir Starmer appeared to be a little flummoxed and perhaps surprised by this, just saying, I'd like to talk to all of those involved. It's a bit like, I often use the analogy of, schools with these. It's almost like Keir Starmer's heard about the bullying incident in the playground, and rather than coming out with his very clear statement of how he would handle it, he says, I want to talk to all of those involved before I make a decision. It doesn't smack of incredibly strong leadership, but similarly, he's kind of kept himself out of trouble.
It's a very, I mean, to be fair to Keir Starmer, it's a very difficult line he's got to tread about what he says. Obviously, he did mention the international law aspect as well. I mean, technically, this is breaking international law. So, obviously, Keir Starmer is a lawyer and has to be very careful what he says there. Just flipping a lot of what you've said on its head, Ben. I mean, the message, obviously, to China is don't mess with me, but the message to China also could be interpreted as, look, I can go into another country and do what I want, therefore you can do the same, thinking of maybe Taiwan.
Yes, and that crossed my mind as well this morning, Dawn. But I don't think that, I don't think President Trump leads from a position of, you have to do as I do. He leads from a position of you'll do as I say, and I can do what I want to do. The other risk, actually, on that President Trump has taken during this first year is being seen as weak when it comes to conflict. And what I mean by that is there have been enough warmongers in the background begging him to bomb Putin, begging him to go in harder in China even. But he has always stepped back. Now, it would be much more controversial, obviously, to take action directly against Russia or China than it is to just go after the smaller country, Venezuela. So is he also sending a message? I won't shy away if you push me. He's tread this very difficult path between being a strong leader and not afraid of conflict, but also not being a warmonger. And in a sense, Venezuela is an easier, smaller target. They are the poster boy for bad leadership over cheap oil that is in cahoots with China and has been for decades.
Bev, sorry, Bev, can I just interrupt you to bring you a breaking news line we have from Trump? He has said he is now making a decision on what next for the Venezuela leadership. What do you interpret from that?
I think it's worth also pointing out this idea that they have been seized. There was a lot of back and forth between the White House and Maduro in the previous couple of months running up to Christmas as to whether he would step down voluntarily. It's unlikely that they stormed his house in the middle of the night, put a blanket over his head and dragged him out. This will have been a negotiation. He will have gone willingly. There will have been all sorts of communications going on in the background. So now saying that he is considering what to do next, they designated him as a terrorist. They designated him as a drug dealer. He could stand in court, of course, in America under those charges. I imagine, as I say, there will be deals being done to some degree. I would be surprised if Maduro ends up behind bars anytime soon. This may have been soft pressure behind. The other thing that's worth thinking about, Dawn, is that they didn't hit back. Venezuela took those strikes. They didn't hit back on the Americans. What does that tell you? Again, maybe a warning. Very little loss of life, we understand. Maybe a warning, maybe communications. Get out. We're coming for you. We're bringing you to America. We're going to bomb some particular sites, which will affect China, as I say, rather than Venezuela. And so who knows? War games are always a little bit more complicated than they appear on the surface, aren't they?
They are indeed, and we will wait to hear what Donald Trump himself has to say. Very interesting to talk to you, Bev. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us live in London, I think. Thank you very much, Bev. And we will hear from Donald Trump very soon in the next hour or so about what he has to say. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency after President Donald Trump confirmed that the US has carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. Well, there are much more to come. This is GB News at Britain's News Channel. I'll see you very soon.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this very, very busy news day. It's a Saturday afternoon, if you're wondering. Now, officials say Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, has been indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges and will face the full force of American justice. President Trump is expected to hold a press conference at around 4:30 UK time, we believe, but anything could happen, so please do stay tuned. We're bringing you live here on GB News. The Prime Minister has reacted to the attacks of this morning. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
OK, joining me now is political commentator Paul Connew. Paul, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to concentrate on the British side of this story. Obviously, huge story globally. But just want to ask you, what did you make of our Prime Minister's reaction there?
It didn't surprise me. It's another example when it comes to Donald Trump. Keir Starmer rather dances on the head of the proverbial pin, not wanting to offend or criticise and playing for time, basically, saying, I need to talk to him later on. In fact, Nigel Farage was rather more interesting, given his friendship with Donald Trump, because he didn't come out with a ringing endorsement of Donald Trump on this. He said that it was unorthodox and contrary to international law, but it might make Russia and China think, which may be useful, he said, which is an interesting observation. Of course, and Ed Davey has come out strongly against it on the grounds it breaks international law and has called for the Prime Minister to condemn it. But of course, so far, Keir Starmer is dancing around doing that. I mean, I've got contacts, who are anti-Maduro in Venezuela, and they certainly won't regret Maduro's downfall, but they are worried because they think that this doesn't mean, it's a bit of a big ego trip for Trump in a way, but it doesn't actually bring about the end of the brutal and illegal regime who stole the last election there. And they fear it could actually lead to increased brutality against opponents and political prisoners, and if people demonstrate in the streets, which so far it doesn't seem to be happening, but it's early days yet. The Trump press conference is going to be fascinating, and it'd be interesting to see how rigorously the American media challenge him on this, because, I mean, Maduro is an appalling figure, and without doubt he does have links to the narco traffickers. I don't know about narco terrorism, but that's one of the charges that's being brought against him. But it's a difficult situation for America here, because this is without doubt a breach of international law. Where Maduro should be is before the International Criminal Court, but of course America isn't a signatory to that. But it does mean that American courts are being asked by the administration to try someone who is in America because he has been snatched from a foreign sovereign state against the terms of international law and the UN Charter and taken to America. I can see some American judges, resisting actually handling this case. It really is a hot potato.
Actually, interesting point, Paul. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, of course. I mean, the indictments actually go back to 2020. That's when these charges were originally levelled. But now Maduro is in America and can face justice. I just want to go back to the fact that our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, seemed to know very little about what was going on. And in fact, from what we hear from other European leaders, the same applies. Now, is this, Paul, do you think, because Trump was aware of the security risk if he told too many people, or he genuinely doesn't really care what the likes of Keir Starmer thinks?
I think it's more likely to be the latter, Dawn. But certainly there's no doubt at all that Number 10 knew nothing about this, and neither did any of America's other European or and NATO allies. It's fascinating because I was surprised in one sense that Trump actually, with his passion for TV, and his ego, didn't actually go back to the White House and didn't actually be in the war room, as it were. In fact, watching it happen live on TV and on TV. I mean, the fact that he only tweeted. Or put out on his Truth Social website after it had actually happened and hasn't yet been before the cameras is rather uncharacteristic. But of course, he will be glorying operation, it would appear. But it is being condemned by many American allies, apart from Russia and China, have come out against it. But you've got Brazil, Colombia, and Chile, who have a new right-wing government, who rather sort of pro-Trump, who have condemned it, and there are calls, by the South American governments for it to go before an emergency UN hearing. So in fact, so it's going to be, this one isn't going away, and it's going to escalate, I think, rather than anything else. But I fear that it is not going to bring down the regime, certainly in the short term, and that the people of Colombia may well be subject to more brutality and more repression. And of course, we still don't know whether there were civilian casualties in the air or missile strikes or drone strikes that took place. We don't know where Maduro is at the moment. The likeliest thing is he and his wife are aboard the American aircraft carrier that's been not far off the Venezuelan coast for
we do believe, Paul,
few weeks.
We do believe, sorry to interrupt, that he is on his way to New York at the moment to face American justice. Paul, just before
he would have been taken off the aircraft carrier, yeah.
But we don't know exactly where. But just before I leave you, Paul, obviously the matter of international law, you can understand the other South American countries you mentioned there being wary, because the message this sends, whether you're America or China, is that you have carte blanche to go into another country and remove that country's leader democratically, she says, in inverted commas, without minor leave. You can do that. International law isn't worth the paper it's written on.
That is the question, and whether this sets a trend. Of course, you can argue that Putin's done the same thing invading Ukraine, but I don't think this is going to improve the chances of Donald Trump getting Putin to cooperate over Ukraine. But I think another factor here, though, is obviously Trump aspires to the oil riches of Venezuela, the biggest oil reserves in the world, but also this is a useful, he might think, diversion from his falling poll ratings at home on the domestic front, and the looming midterm elections. But it's going to be interesting to see how his MAGA base react to this, because it's not exactly in line with his election campaign pledge to stay out of foreign conflicts either.
Yeah, America first. OK, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. That's political commentator Paul Connew there. And as always, let me know what you think about this. We are waiting to hear from Donald Trump himself. We'll be live covering that press conference. There's loads more coming up in today's show, as well as the press conference. Venezuela has declared, as you just heard, a state of national emergency after Donald Trump confirmed that the US has carried out that large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. More on this developing story, including Trump's press conference, coming up. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GBNews, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. It's cold, it's going to remain bitterly cold for much of the weekend. Sunny spells today, plenty of winter sunshine, but snow showers in the forecast. A strong northerly wind across us at the moment. Arctic air bringing in frequent snow showers across particularly the north, but also coastal stretches. An icy start in places this morning and through into the afternoon. It remained bitterly cold. Plenty of winter sunshine, a cold northerly wind just making it feel that bit bitter out there. And temperature-wise, struggling to rise much above freezing for many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees in the far southwest. Add on the strength of that wind, it will feel below freezing. Further snow showers as we move into the afternoon and evening time, particularly frequent across northern Scotland, 20 centimetres or so building up over the next 24 hours on top of what already has fallen. Icy stretches and some travel disruption likely. Icy stretches for much of the country. Northern Ireland seeing wintry showers this evening time. Plenty of clear skies through the spine of the country, but either side of this, around coastal stretches in the east and the west, further snow showers, some sleet in places, icy stretches too, as temperatures fall well below freezing. And overnight, ice remains the main hazard, as well as further heavy snow showers, particularly across north and the west and down the east coast of England as well. Icy stretches here, further snow accumulations. Drifting of snow over northern Scotland in a strong northerly wind, and temperatures well below freezing, -2 to -5, perhaps as low as -10 in the glens of Scotland. It's an icy start to Sunday morning. Met Office warnings for snow and ice across much of the country. And then through the day, we'll see the wind just subtly change direction to a northwesterly, allowing further snow showers and sleet showers across western parts of the country. Best of the sunshine in the east, but temperatures are really struggling once more.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Very, very busy news afternoon. Donald Trump has said Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is currently heading to New York, where he will face the fury of American justice on American soil after being charged with drug and terrorism offences. Joining me now, ahead of Trump's press conference, which is coming up very soon, is political commentator Lee Cohen. Lee, good to see you. Thank you so much. A huge news day, absolutely huge. Firstly, your initial reaction to what your president has done today.
Well done. Thanks for having me on. 2026 is certainly starting off with a bang, driven by President Trump's extraordinary leadership. U.S. forces under his direct command launched a large-scale strike on Venezuela, capturing Nicolas Maduro, the narco-terrorist who masqueraded as a leader while flooding American streets with deadly drugs from his criminal cartel, flown out with his wife to face justice in an American courtroom, as you just mentioned, Maduro's downfall is a triumph of American strength, dismantling a key pillar of global drug trafficking that has fueled addiction, crime, and violence across continents, Don. This decisive action saves countless lives, halts the devastating migration of over 8 million Venezuelans fleeing socialist collapse, and opens a path to stability while protecting Western sovereignty from unchecked chaos. And Don, to bring it closer to home for your viewers, while Trump crushes tyrants, Keir Starmer's leadership casts a shadow of disgrace over Britain, allowing your borders to be overrun by record small boat migrant crossings, a languishing economy, and a public silenced on immigration by his repressive policies, eroding the sovereignty, Don, that 17.4 million voted for in 2016. Don, European leaders contrast with Trump. It's head-spinning, weakening the anti-Western axis of Russia, Iran, and China, unlocking Venezuela's resources for free markets, an inspiring freedom-loving nation. Trump's leadership deters dictators and reaffirms the West's moral authority.
Lee, they are obviously indeed glowing words, but I would have to put to you that Trump does appear to have broken international law. What would you say to that?
What I'd say is that this laudable action dries up the laundered cash fueling terrorist groups and rogue states. It's a strategic masterstroke addressing the Cuban threat, bolstering Ukraine's defense, curbing Iran's menace, and dismantling net zero fanaticism by eventually unleashing Venezuela's oil to flood Western markets. I would say that those are very compelling reasons to pursue this action.
And Lee, obviously, what do you say when we had Bev Turner on earlier on saying this was more about China and Trump warning China not to push him too far? Do you think Bev had a point there?
I think Bev had a point, and that figures in. But quite frankly, Don, saving countless lives where drugs kill tens of thousands and associated crime blights even more with economic and emotional ruin. I mean, this is something that Trump and his team have discussed, very long-standing. So it shouldn't be a surprise out of nowhere. And it has some collateral benefits, such as a shot across the boat to China.
OK, and obviously Trump has made no secret about clearing America of drugs, and we've all seen those horrendous images of drug addicts shambling around your cities, and it is obviously a huge problem. So do you think Trump's behaviour today, the actions he has taken, will play out well with his MAGA fan base, especially considering he has always said he has an American people policy first?
Well, I believe that this is America first, and it's the West first, because this is protective of the West. It's certainly protective of our Western Hemisphere in our very neighborhood, Don. So I think this is America first, protecting lives, protecting the lives of our people and of our allies.
And obviously, you've seen our Keir Starmer's reaction, the video that he put out today when he finally did get around to reacting, saying, "Well, I'm all about supporting international law, and I'll await the press conference to find out exactly what's going on." Are you surprised, Lee, that it does appear that no European leaders were aware of the action Donald Trump was going to take?
No, I'm not surprised, and I'm certainly not surprised at Keir Starmer's lukewarm answer. He's always, a step behind, and, he's several steps behind in what Donald Trump does masterfully, which is putting his own people first. Keir Starmer does not do that at all, and that's part of the catastrophe of his leadership.
Yeah, I think many of our viewers would agree with you on that one. Lee, thank you very much. That's American political commentator Lee Cohen there. Thank you very much for that. OK, now we have heard from most of the political leaders in this country, apart from Kemi Badenoch. Well, the Conservatives have responded to the developing situation just now with our Priti Patel, Shadow Foreign Secretary, saying, We have always strongly condemned Maduro's brutal and repressive regime, and the Conservative government did not consider Maduro's administration as legitimate. Nobody will shed tears for him being removed. We await the full facts about the US operation, which has removed Maduro, and we want to see the Venezuelan people enjoy democratic norms and freedoms. This is clearly a very serious geopolitical moment. OK, that is finally the Conservatives there issuing their statement on the situation. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and if you are in search of some holiday sun, and I can't blame you, it's a bit nippy today, isn't it? Here's a forecast for those top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there. Temperatures above average across parts of Greece at the moment, but still some heavy showers and thunderstorms across parts of Spain. Also down towards the Canary Islands, Madeira, seeing some strong winds and showery rain too. Rain falling as snow over the mountains across parts of Spain, across into Italy as well. Further rain here around the coast. Temperatures around 12 or 13 Celsius. Something a little drier towards Greece there, and temperatures above average, and it remains so here for the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It appears seem to need more time to do that.
They definitely do. I mean, I think this country is becoming so ageist, it's not true. We're all being taxed, and when you think of the years and years we've all paid taxes, and, now they're having another go at us. They're taxing our pensions and everything that we might have saved for that rainy day. Certainly, when crossing a road, it is, if you are, I've got a bad knee, you've got a bad knee over there. We have problems. You have a few problems, Eamon.
About everything.
Yeah, but when you get across the road, you're frightened. I'm frightened of falling, because I think that's one of the major things of old people. They're terrified. I've had two friends in the last fortnight fall very badly and they're in hospital, and then you suddenly get this beep 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 on a crossing, and you panic a bit, and the cars are coming, and bicycles are suddenly there. It's all.
Are people generally not very patient then? Because if there's an old lady or an old man crossing the road in front of me, I'd always stop.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And if you're in a wheelchair, they probably run you over more. I mean, it's a terrible situation.
It's not so much pedestrian crossings, right? It's the ones where it's lights. When Christopher quite right says about the beep beep beep, is so you have, and suddenly it says 10 seconds, 9 seconds.
The countdown's stressful.
Yeah,
and can imagine it would be.
It is trying to I have to trying to drag my leg across the road.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company. Lots of you have been getting in touch about our last interview with Lee Cohen in America, talking about how Trump puts America first. And Sharon Dyer says, 100% agree with Lee. Starmer does not put UK citizens first. Lots of you are agreeing with that compliment, so please do keep them coming in. Now, Donald Trump has said that, well, we know that story, so let's just skip straight to our guest, shall we? Talking about this situation. Obviously, we are joined now by Chief Foreign Affairs Commentator at The Telegraph, who is Tony Blair. Tony Blair? David Blair. David Blair. I'm sorry if that was an insult. David, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. David, first, let's get a quick initial reaction to all the developments we've been reporting on today.
Well, the truth is, I don't think anyone should have been surprised. Trump has been conducting a huge military build-off within striking range of Venezuela for months now. He's been hitting the drug boats. He's destroyed at least several dozen of them and killed well over 100 people. And in November, he issued a new national security strategy, which proclaimed that the US believes in the Monroe Doctrine, which, as you'll remember, asserts US supremacy over the whole of the Western Hemisphere, and that he was going to take that forward. And this is the logical consequence of that strategy.
And what message do you think it sends out to countries like China and Russia with regard to international law?
Well, it's very hard to find a justification for this in international law. As you know, there are only 3 grounds for using force under international law: in self-defense, with UN authority, or to avert a humanitarian crisis. Hard to see how you would argue how any of those criteria are met with this operation. So what Trump is really saying is, look, in my region, in the Western Hemisphere, I will do as I wish and as I judge American interests dictate. And that's exactly what he's done earlier today in Caracas.
And David, can I just get your reaction to Keir Starmer's response, where he said we had no involvement in this? I mean, do you think he not only had no involvement in it, he didn't have a clue it was going to happen?
I'm sure he had no involvement, and that's not surprising because Britain has no historical links with Venezuela. Britain has no great national interests at stake in Venezuela. There was no reason why he should have been involved.
But what about the special relationship? What about letting your allies know? Because this could have huge consequences globally. And the fact that no European leaders seem to know what was going on?
I don't think this will have huge consequences globally. In fact, I don't think it will have huge consequences anywhere except in Venezuela and perhaps in the wider region. So it's not really surprising that the Americans didn't involve the British or their European allies in this, because they're the ones who have the real interests at stake and who are acting to assert them.
OK, interesting. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That is Chief Foreign Affairs Commentator at The Telegraph, David Blair. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
OK, well, and thank you so much for your company this afternoon. I appreciate it's been a different programme, but I hope you appreciate that it is a live breaking news day. And don't go anywhere, because we are going to be covering Donald Trump's press conference live this afternoon. I've been Dawn Neeson with GB News. Thank you so much for watching, but don't go anywhere, because Nana Akua is up next and she will have that press conference for you.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains very cold through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week as well. Snow showers for some of us, icy stretches for most of us, and some winter sunshine as well. Cold northerly airflow, air coming all the way down from the Arctic, bringing a bitter feel to things for the rest of Saturday and into Sunday as well. Clearing skies this evening, temperatures widely falling below freezing. The blues on the map show that frost and ice developing very quickly, and as we head overnight, further wintry showers as sleet and snow showers feeding in from the north, largely around northern, western and eastern parts of the country. Central areas staying dry, but temperatures widely below freezing, -2 to -5 in the countryside, perhaps even down to -10 in the glens of Scotland. And those snow showers continue to feed in on quite a strong northerly wind, so they will move through quickly, but they will be heavy. Further accumulations possible. Met Office snow and ice warnings remain out right through the rest of the week. weekend. Wintry showers across Northern Ireland as well Sunday morning. Plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but Wales down into the West Country, icy stretches and further sleet and snow showers in places. Very little changes through the day on Sunday. We remain cold with that northerly breeze. Plenty of winter sunshine, particularly across central and eastern parts of England, but Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales will see further sleet and snow showers. The snow continuing to accumulate, icy stretches in places, and temperatures once again not rising much above freezing. For many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees across the far southwest by the afternoon. Into Sunday evening, further bands of sleet and snow pushing southwards, particularly across the west, snow and ice accumulating in places, and it stays cold into Monday. Signs of something a little less cold, though, come the middle of the week. Temperatures just rising a little.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.